Forerunner doesn't need to be buffed, and it can't really be nerfed, but unfortunately, it will fall out of the meta. Forerunner is a peculiar example of a sub-archetype of weapon within Destiny 2. It's a great gun, fun to shoot, and quite unique, but just like many weapons like it, it's destined to be unused except for the skillful and devoted fans. Bungie didn't do a bad job when making the weapon, but they find themselves in an interesting conundrum in regards to weapon balance. It isn't a problem per se, but nevertheless it's an interesting case study in how difficult game design can really be. Let's dissect that a little bit. What is the Forerunner? Well, it's a 200 RPM kinetic sidearm. It boasts about 40 meters, 50 meters worth of range, 0.6 second TTK requiring all three head, or a 1.5 second TTK if you hit nothing but the body. This weapon in isolation is pretty damn good, probably the best weapon in the game. Burst damage, long range, it's even capable of pushing TTKs that very few weapons are even able to see. The only thing we've got that's similar to it only has about 17 meters worth of range if you're lucky, and that being the 300 RPM sidearms, which are much harder to hit headshots at further ranges with. But if you start comparing the Forerunner to other weapons that are like it, you start to see a trend, and it's not necessarily a good trend for the Forerunner, again, despite it being a really fun gun. Let's look at the current weapon usage on Destiny Tracker. It is about 58 on the list. Obviously, this will go up and down depending on the time of day, and I'm willing to bet this is as high as it is on the list because the Mechaneer's Trick Sleeves were recently released back to us, and a lot of people are still experimenting with that. For comparison's sake, because that number in isolation doesn't do a whole lot of good, Sweet Business is 17 spots above it. The Sweet Business, the meme gun, the burr cannon, and 32 places above it is Vigilance Wing. It puts it in perspective a little bit, doesn't it? And again, I know I'm going to get comments about this down below of people saying, how could you say that the Forerunner is insert whatever adjective here? I love the gun, I use it every single day. People slap me or I slap other people with it, and no, I agree with you. What you're seeing in the background here is a TDT member that goes by the name of Neon. He has some of the best stats that I've ever seen in Destiny. He has an overall KD of 2.6. That's for the entire time he's been playing. But if you were to compare that to his seasonal KD, where he started to come into himself a little bit more, as it were, he has a 3.92 KD and a KAD of 4.59. The dude is absolutely cracked. He loves the Forerunner, but he is a unique case that can make it work. But of course, you don't have to be the best in order to use a gun, but I use him as an example in order to show sort of the higher upper echelon of what this weapon is really capable of, and then compare it to myself, who's above average. I'm definitely not the best, or definitely not the worst. I don't dislike the gun, and I'm guessing neither do you, but you don't see it a lot, and it comes up just about as common as the exotic trace rifle. And the reason for that is that it shares the exact same struggles. Show of hands, can your best PvP build give up your special weapon, your exotic, and require you to hit all of your heads? These three in combination with one another make for a recipe of if you're good, it's good. The demand this weapon has not only on you as a player, but on your build as a whole, makes this weapon very, very difficult to build around. Ironically, the best combo with this is just another sidearm. It has a similar engagement style to trace rifles. The difference with trace rifles is that they don't deal burst damage, whereas burst damage is and always will be meta within PvP in Destiny 2. That's why hand cannons have lasted so long. Even if you are a good player and you're able to make this thing hit heads more often than you don't, stalled or unoptimal fights result in ammo attrition. Basically, the longer you keep using this gun, the more you're going to lose out on your ammo. And I'm not even talking about the catalyst, which is a whole nother story, but let's say if you were to shoot a target and they were to dip around corner and heal, that's 1/4 of a special ammo brick lost right there on the spot. It's of course similar to other special weapons, but with other special weapons, primarily things like shotguns, fusion rifles, and sniper rifles, most of the time the player on the other end of it is basically dead. And if they're not, you're probably in a good spot that you're not going to get outgunned, barring that person having something very similar. It lacks the potential to really shut down anything at the ranges that it's good at. Again, it's a great gun. The TTK on it is some of the best for its range in the entire game, but you get a little too close and then something like a last word or a normal sidearm starts to put some hurt on you. You get a little too far away and suddenly you're having to deal with the 0.67 TTK of something like a high impact pulse rifle, and they can miss a shot and still be okay, or at least it has to land body. Are you going to be able to do the same? I really like this gun. I really do. I hope that that's gone through. I know people are going to get nasty at me in the comments section because I said anything even slightly contradictory to the weapon, but I legitimately do like the gun. But it's an interesting conundrum that this weapon is in. You can't really buff it because the people who are good with the thing get suddenly insanely good. You can't really nerf it because it doesn't really need to be nerfed. It's already not really getting used. It's kind of similar to the Erianas in a lot of ways. When you think about it, on paper, Erianas is a hand cannon that is just absolutely cracked out of its mind. It's a .67 TTK, one head, one body, that's a kill. How often do you see Erianas? Not much. And when you do see Erianas, people are building specifically around the Erianas. I don't know if Forerunner can do the same. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm genuinely interested. If you have a build that makes Forerunner absolutely cracked, leave it in the comment section down below. Another interesting case study to bring up with this is the subject of Jotun. Jotun comes up a lot specifically around players who are at or below average skill. I'm sorry, I know I'm slightly calling you out, but really, it is. Among the higher skilled players, Jotun is more or less of a joke, especially when you get higher and higher, because it's not difficult to counter if you know what you're doing. If you're holding cover well, if you're paying attention, the Jotun can be dodged. At best, it's a fusion rifle with more range. At worst, it's just never ever gonna land because targets are always gonna be close to cover. Same problem, can't buff it because the people who are using it as sort of an easily accessible option for damage and kills suddenly get better for not really any good reason. If you nerf it, then it gets even less usable at the higher tier of play. The Forerunner sort of sits up in that echelon, a little bit higher up in the skill echelon a little bit more, but it has a very similar problem. It's well balanced. I don't know what Bungie could do with it. If they made it so that it only needs to hit 2 heads and 1 body, it's too good. If they required it to, I don't know, up the overall rate of fire but lowered the damage, it's just awkward. I think the weapon's balanced. I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on it though. And hey, if you're looking to get into 6v6 lobbies that are designed to be more off meta and more focused on being fun and unusual, come join us on our Discord and our Fight Forever project. And while you're on your way, maybe grab a t-shirt to help support the cause. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bless your faces, and deuces.
The darkness. Take out those guardians. Guardian down. "10 seconds. The executioners come to town."